How do you make your lead lines sound more melodic and like they're glued into the music that they're a part of? Well, in this lesson, we're going to explore that through a little example. I think you're going to dig it. That's coming up. The biggest tip that I have for you in order to make this work and really get a lot out of this little example is to kind of be able to see the future a little bit. What that means on the guitar is you kind of have to have an idea of the chord progression before you start putting together lead lines. Now maybe that's you're playing with somebody and you guys communicate and you say this is a 1-4-5, or perhaps you just kind of feel it as you're moving along, but you've got to know the chord changes. All right, so I'm going to give you that and we're going to get started. We're going to do a little strum along to illustrate this idea that I want to share with you, and we're going to do this in the key of C major. So our 1 chord is C, we're going to play that, and then we're going to move to our 5 chord G, then our 4 chord F, and then our minor 3, the E minor, all right, and then we're going to come back to our 5 chord G. So those are the chords that we're working from. We're going to use the C major scale to build out our melody. All right, that carries us all the way through the C chord part. All right, so let's talk a little bit about that. Really, we're just making use of this triad that's on top. I've got the 3rd of the C major triad here, which is 3rd string, but it's the G note, C note, and then E. 3 notes from the C major triad. So we're going to make use of that and just strum through and arpeggiate those top 3 notes. Before putting down your little finger on the 3rd fret, 1st string, that's a high G note, and that's going to really help us in this next passage. All right, so the little finger's taking care of the G and that pull off. Back to the D on the 2nd string, then the open 1st string, back to the C, and then we're going to hit the A and then open. All right, that is the phrase over C. But what's very important is actually the very next note. And this is the idea behind this entire example. You'll see this repeat itself. I'm kind of anticipating the chord change here. I'm wrapping up over C, but I've got my eye to what's next. And that's a big G chord. And I'm going to target the 3rd of the upcoming chord. That is a B note here. So I want to make sure after I wrap up on my C phrase that I hit that open B as we hit the top of the next measure. That kind of moves us from C into G. Let's listen to that as I finish the phrase with that B. You can almost feel the chord change. It's hard not to move to the G chord now. Now we're over G and we've got a very similar phrase, but we end it differently so that we set ourselves up for the next chord that's coming, which is F. Remember, we start with C, move to G, then F. So we're going to target the 3rd of the F chord. That's an A note. All right, so that is the connector that gets us into F. These last 2 notes specifically are C and then our A. Hitting that 3rd of the chord that's coming really tells the listener that you know what you're doing. You're following the changes. You're not even following them so much as you're leading them, and that's the idea. So we're going to call out this major 3rd of the F chord here. So now our chords are changing from F down to the E minor and then back to G. Through each of these changes, we're going to make sure that we land on the third of the upcoming chord. And when we move from our F down to E minor, our third is minor third. It's this G note here, so that's what we're going to target. Then we're going to move back to G, and we already know that B is our third, in this case a major third of this G major chord. So those are going to be our next two target tones. We move from this A, third of F major, down to G, third of E minor, and then up to B, third of G major. All right, so let's hear this ending phrase. All right, so a couple of little connectors, nothing really serious going on, but we move down into E minor and then into G, okay? Nothing super fancy, but we're getting that melody to do what we want it to. We want to connect on the third of the chord that we're changing into. And we did just that with that G and then with this B. And even at the end, when I played this longer phrase, emphasized the E, which is the third of C that we were changing into. So give that a shot in your playing. It's a great first step to really make sure that you know how to lead the music rather than just follow the chord changes. And keep in mind, I was playing the C major scale the entire time. I'm sure you could spice things up in your own way and maybe come up with your own melody. I'd love to know that you did that. If you do, leave a comment below and we'll cheer you on. Check out this video if you want to keep learning, and I'll be back next week with another lesson. Until then, practice smart and play on.